Hello, welcome to another Sonic Lab special. We're here with Owain from Native Instruments, and we're going to take a bit of a closer look at the Komplete Kontrol and the sort of NKS integration with, well, a new DAW for starters, right?
Yeah, definitely. So obviously what we're looking at on the screen now is I've got Logic set up and I've got 7 instances of Komplete Kontrol set up. But the first thing is to actually look at, well, how does it distinguish between all of them? So obviously if I start navigating up and down, you can see that
You're moving tracks.
Exactly, and it's focusing on what's around. Interestingly, when we look onto this one though, we can see that the keybed colours are different to what we've been looking at before. So
right, and this is the, what do you call it? Is this the key guide?
This is called the light guide
Light
that
guide,
we called
right,
it.
that's it.
So, and obviously normally when it's on a synthesizer it's blue. However, we've got a contact instrument loaded into it. So what this is telling me is we've got different sections here. So if I start playing the red keys, these are patterns essentially. I've still got things that I can go in and tweak in real time if I want to. This is recordable automation. I have fills up here that I can play with, and then I have single hits here as well. So in actual fact, when I play the phrasings, it's actually showing me which parts are making that up exactly. If I move it up onto the next one, we can see again, I'm presented with some different colours in this sense now. And what we've moved up to is this is round. So this is one of our synthesizers that you can purchase. If you haven't checked it out, check it out because it's a great synthesizer. Essentially at the moment, if I just play a note, you can see that it's actually cycling its way through. But then what I can do is I can actually come along, because what people have noticed is that this little yellow one's made its way along as we were playing as well. So what this is doing is this is allowing me to actually isolate one of the engines within it and say, right, I only want you to play A. So then you'll see now that that's only playing that part of the engine, but then I can actually come down even further and say to it, well, actually I only want to play number 3, but I only want to play that part within it as well. And then we'll see further up on the line, it's a bit too low on that note, so.
Oh, so it's kind of like a sequencer stroke wave.
It is, but what you'll see though is because obviously we've got the whole integration with Komplete Kontrol.
Yeah, we're getting this.
Yeah, and you get much more usability and playability out of it.
So I'm guessing with other contact instruments, you'd have the key switching, you'd have all
You will see exactly the same as when we go back onto this bit. It's all down here as well. Obviously, this kind of thing is mappable to someone if they want to go into it, but you have to know what you're doing in Contact to be able to do that. The beauty of this is you just plug and play. So I don't need to get het up with all of the programming side of it, so as it were. I can just get on, load it up, start playing with it straight away.
So in terms of actually accessing these instruments, I mean, you're browsing, everything's done from the keyboard, right?
It is, yeah. So in the same way, I would just hit browse and we can see here it's telling me what I've got at this point in time. But because I've actually reduced the results field down, if I'd chosen more and not said, okay, I don't want to look in West Africa, but then if I'd come over to it and said, actually, maybe I wanted to look at sampled instruments, for example, and I hit load onto this one, this will load up and I can play it, but now because I've reduced down that results field, I can actually just use this preset button to start driving through things now. So I don't have to go back into the browse engine at all now. We can see on this one, obviously, that this has been loaded up. So this is telling me that we've got different effects that are happening down here that I can scroll through. So you can see it really allows you to get full hands-on playability with the instrument straight away.
And also, I mean, I'm guessing what this shows is how this is just looking for sounds. It doesn't care what the instrument is behind it.
Exactly.
It just says, I want to find you a bass sound or a West African organ or whatever it may be.
And that's the power of it, because essentially it just jumps over that whole instrument selection bit and just says, look at all my instruments, but just show me pads, for example.
That includes, obviously, if you buy a Komplete Kontrol, you get Complete Select. We've got this.
You do. So if we get it down here, so basically we do this in 4 different sizes. So we go 25, 49, 61 and an 88. They all come packaged with this, which is Complete Select. If you buy the keyboard, this will come as a downloadable product. However, you can buy this completely separately on its own now. So this comes
with... That's like a selection of...
Exactly that. So it gets contact play, you get reactor play, you get massive in there. I think you get monarch in there as well, and you get items to plug into those different players to actually.
So that'll get you started. I mean, so I guess my point was that's going to give you plenty to get going. But if you happen to have a Complete or Complete Ultimate or whatever, then you need a way to get hold of it.
And obviously, what the beauty of Komplete Kontrol is a great organisational tool, not just for our stuff, but for any NKS partners as well.
Right.
The big thing about NKS as well, though, is essentially what we're doing is we're giving people a blank hardware chassis. So if you are a third-party software developer and you make your stuff exactly that,
because you've opened it up, you don't have to pay to develop for NKS. You could just get the SDK. Right.
You do. So other things we can do, obviously, is I can scroll up and I can go through all of these parts. And if I just press play, we can see that this is actually just a little 8-bar loop that I've made using different instances of Komplete Kontrol. As I scroll my way through, you'll see that some of them are Native Instruments based things, some of them aren't. So it treats them in exactly the same way, though. It has no distinction between them.
Right, and we're getting the...
We are. And what we can see here is when I'm on different things, the keyboards are showing me different parts of information. So on this one, for example, if I go back up, we can see that this is showing me some scale information that's going on here as well.
All right, and this is the light guide stuff.
It is.
Right.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my loop over, and I'm just going to press play now. And if I move this down slightly, what you can see is this is the arpeggiator pattern that I've written, but I've actually used Smart Play features to get to this point. So if I literally press stop, switch the scale and switch the arp off, and now we press play again, you can see that sounds completely different
so that
to what I had it before.
arpeggiating and that sort of is happening between the recorded MIDI pattern and the final plugin.
Yeah, and what we're hearing essentially. So as I now turn more of the Smart Play features on, it really allows me to change and sculpture that sound. So I just put in a couple of root notes out of the scale E flat, D sharp. If I press scale and bring the chord engine on, it now starts to stack multiple notes over my single instance of note. And then if I now press the arpeggiator pattern, it will now just turn that into something completely different.
So you've got quite a random, what's that, 8th triplet feel or something?
It is. So if I go into the edit page, you can start to see here, but this is all changeable as well. So I have different sequences that I can choose from. So that's what it would sound like normally. I can go through, choose whatever sequence that I want.
Oh, that's interesting. So you're interacting with the keyboard to modify the data you've already written, but it's not hard written. It's real-time modification.
Exactly.
Your basic data is staying the same.
And this is all recordable as well. So if I come in and actually switch the automation on at this point, I can now start to move through different inversions of that arpeggiator pattern as I'm going through. I could even tell it to start to repeat information as it's going through. And obviously the beauty of it is I can scroll anywhere within this control surface.
And while you're in record mode.
And it's all recording on there as well. And then obviously I simply just need to come out of automation mode again so that it will then read that automatable data that I've put into it.
So I guess in that way, I mean, you've got an 8-bar pattern there. You could copy that and then just work on big amounts of sound sculpting for each track.
Exactly.
And have a separate section. Okay.
And from a really small pool of ideas, actually musical ideas, you can actually create quite a broad spectrum of different variation that's going on from it as well. Because for me, I start to think about this much more now as how am I going to play these arpeggiator patterns to form part of my composition that I'm making. And certainly it makes me think differently about other instruments as well, because I'm using scale and arp on something quite traditional at the moment, but if you start to think out of the box of it, for example, if I move up onto this one, this hi-hat pattern that I've written at this point in time is actually just written using the arpeggiator to actually get that hi-hat pattern in there. So I can start thinking about changing the sequence of the arpeggiator pattern to give myself a little bit of variation.
But presumably when you save the state of the song, all of those kind of parameters are where you left them.
Exactly.
So when it comes back, it's right.
But same thing again, if I wanted to even record those sequence passes as automatable data, just arm the track, record it, come out of it and save it, and it's all there for me as well. So although these obviously have a traditional use case, they've got great application outside of it, because even if I took, let's say, a contact instrument and they just had all hi-hats in them, I could then run the arpeggiator on the hi-hats and it would actually be taking out different pitched hi-hats for me as well, because it's chromatically mapped across with all the pitches. And that's the important thing with these things. Yes, they have a use case that we foresaw, but the beauty of it is then thinking out of that box, how can I use it in a different and interesting way?
And again, as you say, you can use these to apply to third-party NKS and...
Totally, I mean, because it's just a hood that goes over everything. So all that the plugin does is it sees the instrument, you then initiate whatever these Smart Play features that you want, whether it be a scale functionality or whether it be an arpeggiator functionality.
All right, and so that's per instance. So if you've got multiple instruments, you could have different sets of...
Exactly, so then you can think about, well, it's not a global setting. I've got 8 different instances, and actually I'm working it, not, you probably wouldn't, but you want to work in 8 different keys all at the same time, then it is possible to do that in that sense as well.
And I guess with the light guide, I mean, with the scaling or whatever, you can use it to maybe kind of that's that scale, that's how you play that
scale.
So
totally. I mean, like if we move down onto something that's more traditional again now, because obviously I come back into this scale thing, this is telling me that I'm in E flat minor and it's got the right ones in there. However, if I play a wrong note, so if I take the arp off, you'll see now that although that I'm playing actually that G at that point in time, it knows that G doesn't exist in that scale. So it's actually just pushing it. Exactly. Right. And then if I switch the chord engine off, then it is just a simple case of me playing the notes that have got lights above them. I can actually keep the light guide on, but it allows me to play the incidentals. Or if I turn it all the other way, then we go to easy mode, and basically now it's switched the blacks off, but it's just transposed everything over a C octave. Learn the right notes, hear them, switch it back over to here. Now I've got to learn the fingerings, and now I've got to go all the way over. And then if you get really confident, you obviously just switch it off and you go from there.
So these are all available now. This is the 49.
This is the 49. We've got 61. The 61 behind us. The 88 is obviously the big one, and that's got a fully weighted key bed in it. And then the 25 is the little baby one. So, but they're all available. They all come with Complete Select bundled in with it now. So obviously if it's something of interest to you, note to your watchers as well, if they have Complete 9 or upwards, then they actually have Complete Kontrol as a piece of software.
They could just go and
get it. Even if they don't want to use the keyboard, it's a great organisational tool for our stuff, but for everyone else's stuff that's NKS compatible as well. So
obviously this is sort of super integrated mode with Complete Kontrol and everything. I mean, this is a pricey and quality keyboard. I mean, how does it function as a sort of generic MIDI controller? Is that possible?
Yeah, it is. So obviously we do a piece of software called Controller Editor, which people should access as well, because that's actually a free download on our site for any of the hardware that you've got. And the idea being you can create your own custom MIDI templates within it. So if I switch over the focus over to here, and if I go now shift an instance, this has put this into a MIDI mode. So this is just the standalone default mode at the moment. But what I have set up here is a standalone for a multiplayer. Right. And what you'll see is when I've loaded this up, stuff's already changed.
Oh gosh, so you've got the actual mappings are key coloured as well. So these are splits, right?
They are exactly that. So if we look over here and I actually change to the assign section, we can see that I've got different splits in this point. What this is showing me is there's different things that I can change. So I can set the key range that I want it to work within, but also as well I can transpose the key range down. So this one's actually been transposed up by 2 octaves. And we're saying that the velocity curve on this section is hard 2, but then if I move it onto the next key zone, you'll now see that it's got a lint. But the beauty of it is I can have different page templates up here as well at the moment. So at the moment you can say that that's seeing Moog, and this is actually all mapped out for a Moog. But if I move it onto the next one, it's now moved over onto a Yamaha. And if I move it onto the last one,
this is now effectively control sets for the...
Exactly. So I would be playing, possibly, and I would be tweaking from here on the lower key split, but then I would move it onto the middle key split, and I would be tweaking from here, move it onto the upper, tweak it from here. So I can control all of those simultaneously.
Right. So if I want to use this live, I mean, is this stored in the actual hardware?
You can. What you can do is you can come over to this point here, click on templates, right click, set a standalone default. It'll ask you if you want to overwrite. We're going to say yes in this sense. Now what I can do is pull the USB lead out of the back of it, and now it's just rebooted and that firmware's stored.
And that gives access to the MIDI
Yeah, you've got 2 MIDI ports on the back there that you can access. And now you just use this. And the beauty of it is you know that you don't have to go back to Control Editor at any point because it's now stored within the keyboard itself.
Ah, that's handy, because that was always one thing, because it felt like it was very closed.
Yes,
but
like
now it's right. So
almost if it was for software only.
Can you store more than one preset in it, or is it just the state?
No, you can only have one that's stored to it. But then what you can do is if you want to be able to go through several at the same time with the USB lead plugged back in again, what I can do is I can just select from over here. I want to be on template 1. I want to be on template 2. So if I go back into MIDI again.
It goes that quickly, right?
There we go, and then it's just followed. So if you did want to switch between different templates, just have that open in the background, and then you could be able to scroll through them very easily.
Fantastic. Owen.
Lovely.
Thank you very much for showing us. That was the Complete Kontrol system. Thanks very much to Owen for coming along. We'll see you next time.